Hi, and thank you for downloading the Introduction to IB Psychology Teacher Support Pack. If you haven't used my support materials before, I hope this will be helpful. I like to make these short videos because sometimes it's easier to explain in writing than in the unit plans, but I hope it's all kind of self-explanatory and I hope you like the lessons. So this introduction has 5 lessons. We're going to begin with behavior. So the end of today, they should know what's psychology, what's behavior, and why do psychologists study it. And you'll notice this trend throughout the what, why questions and then the critical thinking extension. Notice that I don't put the 3rd level critical question in these introductory slides at the start of each class. Anyway, I've got a placeholder here for you. This is for you to add your own personal introduction, class rules, whatever you like to do. I've got a link to the video in the unit plan on how to get your students to write their names on those nameplates. Very brief course overview. I like this. This is fun, takes the pressure off me, get it back into the students, get them engaged, get them talking to each other. They have a minute or two and find the most interesting, unique thing they have in common. I encourage them to start broad, how many siblings have you got, where were you born, and then get narrower and narrower and narrower. Even if they lie and fib, it's okay. Brain dump. Now this, you just give them a blank page and a couple of minutes to write down what they know about psychology, and you can use this again later when you come to teach schema theory, and you can show, hey look, you had a very undeveloped psychology schema to start the course, and then if they write down what they remember later in a different colored pen, you'll see, hey look, your psychology schema is now really developed. And so it just makes the idea of schema a bit more concrete. So I like to do this in the beginning. And so once they finish doing that, they come up and I've got the stack of textbooks at the front of the class, and they come get it one at a time. And it's kind of funny to see the conformity effects. No one wants to be the first one to come up to the front, and then once one does, they all do. And I like to point that out as well. I start every unit with the key terms, traffic lights. I've got colored pencils at the front of my class. They can use highlighters. It's not a coloring in competition. I have to remind them. It's just a quick visual of, hey look, this is what we're going to know by the end of this unit. The key terms are really the building blocks of knowledge that we need. And then what I like to do after they finish, if anyone that's a green, they find someone that's a yellow or a red, or vice versa. If they've got a red and their partner next to them or someone is a green, then they can explain it. I don't go through each word and explain what they mean. We do that at the end of the unit. This is a pre-assessment. Bit of chalk and talk. All right, this is what psychology is, and then we're looking at observable actions, so things like aggression, violence, drug use, alcohol, using their phones. This is my favorite word at the moment, fubbing, snubbing someone with your phone, online dating, or even just scrolling, and play, childhood play. Of course, you can fully edit these slides if you like. Now, a lot of people might be, oh my gosh, you've got alcohol and a needle and drugs here. Yep, our course is pretty raw. We look at drug abuse. There's a chapter there on opioid addiction, and I think kids bounce. I'm not precious of them. We deal with some pretty nitty-gritty stuff. Either we can explain things that are relevant that they'll be able to use in their lives, or we can be scared and avoid it. And I understand some people would rather not, and that's totally up to you. Again, this is why all this stuff is editable. But for me, I'm fine leaning into the real world and what these guys are going to encounter in the next few years of their lives. Now, this is a new activity of mine, and I want to explain. Don't know how this will go in your class. In the past, to get the idea of an observable action, a behavior, things people do, I've asked students to just come up with their own examples, and they've struggled. So what I do is I get a big sheet of butcher paper. I write down before class these words on each of them. So technology is at the top of an A3, A2, or a butcher piece of paper, and then I spread them around the room. And actually, if you get students in groups of 3, then they come and get one and spread themselves around the room. And then they come up with a list of observable actions relevant to each of these things. And there's no right answer here, right? We're just trying to get them to think about the real world. What do people do out there in the real world? And anything they come up with, I guarantee psychologists have studied it before. And I've got an example. I mean, it'd be good to do one together as a class to get the ball rolling. I've got some examples here. And the idea behind this slide is that at the end, they may be able to come up and write down some of the things, some of their favorite ones that they came up with here, and then you can talk about it, right? And so, and this is what we study as psychologists. We study reading comprehension. How can we improve it? Although, I mean, reading comprehension is not observable. Whoops. Jogging, fitness, the way people dress, first impressions, kissing, physical affection, shopping, buying things, persuasion, right? Birthday parties, celebrations, traditions, social media, scrolling, phubbing. And so hopefully they can just come up with a few behaviors. And really the goal here is just to get them thinking about the real world, because the more that students can start to see interesting behaviors out there in the world and bring them to the psychology classroom, the more engaged they're going to be. I've put a slide here to go through some examples, right? Watching Netflix, posting, doom scrolling, sharing selfies, ignoring people texting and driving, and the new one, right? Falling in love with AI avatars. These are all things that psychologists have studied, although the falling in love with AI avatars maybe not yet, but they're bound to. So that's the purpose behind this activity, just to get them to think about examples there in the real world. Feel free to adjust it as you need to in your class. We get into a think, pair, share with the why. Okay, why do we study these things? And then a bit of chalk and talk. My 2 cents, you might have some other perspectives here. A recurring theme in this course is if we can identify the harmful behaviors like aggression, addiction, depression, then if we can identify those, understand the root causes, maybe we can try to prevent them and help people overcome them. Similarly, if we can find the beneficial behaviors, we might be able to help people do more of them, like happiness. And then every lesson I like to give students a chance to take some notes, right? This is quiet time, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Also, what this means is my goal and the way I use the textbook with the workbook is if they didn't quite understand things in the class, because some students will get it and others won't, this gives students a chance just to read. They can get another access to the information. Eventually, I'm going to try to make video tutorials as well, so they can read and then they can look at videos in their own time if they want to. And unapologetically, I believe in the old-fashioned read and write pen and paper, and so I think this course would work best if you've got a textbook where they can read and you're printing out the physical workbooks. Another alternative is they can just use regular exercise books, right? The old-fashioned exercise books. Your students might be more disciplined than mine, and they can open up their laptops and they can stay on task and they can do everything digitally. That's probably the case with you, but I find the students that struggle the most are the ones that are most at risk of cognitive hijack from their laptops. And so here's a lesson as well. If you've got students, because the textbook's structured lesson by lesson, depending on what extent you follow the course through the textbook, you could tell them they can get ahead. They can read tomorrow's lesson overnight, and then that will give them a head start. So this is what I call pre-medial, right? Instead of, especially with struggling students. These black slides are there just to help you navigate the slideshow to show it is the end of the slide. So that's our first lesson.